Hello guys, hope you're okay. Welcome to the podcast. I'm Simon Gibson. This is Success Won't Come Calling, and it's the podcast for people who want to be better tomorrow than they were today. I'm just on my way to our podcast studio to meet my first guest, who's Sam Avery. Sam is a fantastic stand-up comedian. He's a best-selling author. He's an award-winning blogger as well. I met Sam when I was doing stand-up myself, which I did between 2007 and 2012. We got on very well, we gigged quite a lot. And when my comedy career ended, Sam has gone on to do some really tremendous things, including he's wrote a book called Confessions of a Learner Parent. He's continued as a comedian and he's filled theatres throughout the country. And I was interested to hear that Sam very recently has diversified his career into the business world. He now provides training to companies and their staff who want to have better engaged workforces and better relationships amongst colleagues. So I'm looking forward to telling Sam what I've been up to. I'm looking forward to hearing all about what he's been up to, and I think we're going to have a great conversation. So, relax. We all ready? Great. Here we go with Sam Avery.
Did you manage to park outside, by the way?
Yeah, I parked on the corner, and it was really nice to walk from the car to here and see like hipsters just hanging around on the streets.
You wouldn't have fit in there, Sam.
No. I used to look at hipsters and go, look at you following the trends. But now it's nice to see people, isn't it?
It totally is, mate.
Just hanging around on the streets and just, it's great fun. So it's dead nice to come into a building and be in a room with people who have a different surname to me. Yeah. I've spent the last 12 months I'm annoying them as much as they're annoying me. I know that, but this is great.
This is live, isn't it now? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Hey, well, it's good to see people. It's good to see you as well.
Yeah, good to see you.
So it's about 10 years, isn't it?
It is, something like that, yeah. It's been a while.
Yeah. Well, I've just read the fantastic book of yours, Confessions of a Learner Parent, and I've got to just clarify. We're going to talk loads about that later. I think the last time, or certainly one of the last times we gigged together, was the gig you met the future Mrs. Avery.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Was that Rawhide Raw?
Yeah, that one in the Royal Court, yeah.
That was Rawhide Raw. That was a gig that that was kind of a big moment for me in doing stand-up, in that it was the first residency that I had comparing that was a proper gig. Because I'd run my own gigs before that in some really, really dodgy bars, just purely to try and, get experience. But that was the first proper comedy club with staff working the door. So, because all the other ones, I was doing the door, seating people, and then standing up and talking. And you've got no authority because people are like, hang on, you're the fellow who I asked where the toilets were. And now you're trying to tell me that you're in charge of this entertainment. So yeah, but I met my wife there.
It's amazing. Well, what experience was it that stood out that night, doing comedy with me or meeting your wife? I mean, there were obviously two pivotal moments in your life.
Well, I think now that we're here together, I'd have to say meeting you. But only because I know my wife won't listen to this. Not because of the podcast, but she never listens or watches anything I'm on. So
fair enough.
Which is good. I can pretty much say anything I want, really.
Yeah. Anyway, we do guest rider on the podcast. What was you drinking, Sam?
Well, I've got a bit of a penchant for Maker's Mark bourbon, which is what this is, with a little drop of water. So I don't know if you're a bourbon man.
I don't think I've ever drank bourbon, so I'm going to give it a go. Is this a night out drink or a chill out drink?
It's a Saturday night at home. Match of the day's just finished. My wife's gone to bed, and I'm thinking, I'll have another drink on my own.
Tell you what, it's the stuff that, isn't it?
It's very strong. It makes you feel like JR. That's why I like it. I feel like I should be like looking out of a window at my ranch.
Hey, well, here's to you, mate. Thanks for coming on.
Cheers. Thanks for the drink.
Good to see you.
It's great to see you. It's great to be here. And I'm not just saying that because
No, it's fantastic to see you, mate. So, I mean, where do we start? I mean, we started working together doing comedy. The first one I can remember was the infamous Dragon Bar gig on Hardman Street in Liverpool. Just remind me how that was.
Well, it's not even there anymore. I
think
it's not. It's become something else. But it was a bar that was the least likely bar to have comedy on. And someone introduced me to the owner, and I said, could I put a gig on here? And I was at a point where I think at that point I'd done stand-up for like 4 or 5, 6 years maybe, but I wasn't really very good still. I was getting better, but my big issue was just confidence. Didn't have any confidence. I was never confident as a kid and struggled to kind of just feel comfortable on the stage. And comedians talk about finding themselves on stage.
Yeah.
And I think that just comes from repetition and just putting yourself out there in stage time. And I wasn't getting enough gigs, so I thought if I set up my own gig, and I thought I'll set up my gig in the worst bar possible, because it'll be like going to like the roughest boxing gym and just to get ripped. Like comedy, I wanted to get comedy ripped. So the bar was like an L shape, which is a terrible idea for comedy, because, you know, the sight lines were poor. It was free to get in, which again can work, but only if there's a stringent door policy, because otherwise people just wander in. There was no stage. There was like a pallet that I used to stand on. Some weeks there was no mic. I used to say to acts, come and do this gig, but it is the worst gig in the country and you're not going to have a good time. But if you want to do it, come and do it. But don't complain to me afterwards.
I was going to put my headphones on, mate. Just talk about the worst, least professional comedy gig. This is the least professional podcast where the host forgets to put his headphones on.
So, yeah.
Thanks, mate. Well, do you know what? My memories of that gig was that it was rough and ready, for sure, but that you ran a tight ship in terms of just the way the night flowed. It was a proper gig in terms of the way it was structured. And it was a nice comedy community in those days, wasn't it? Between the people actually doing the acts. Is that how you recall it?
Definitely, yeah. I mean, I also recall some of the kind of more spicy incidents where people would wander in and try and attack me on the stage, but they were few and far between. And there was this nice camaraderie amongst the level of acts that were doing it were people like myself who were kind of trying to break through to the next level, and people like yourself who were pretty much brand new to it. Yeah. People doing the first gig as well, so sometimes they bring friends. But what would happen, there was a core of about 5 or 6 of us that would be there every week, whether we were on or not, and we'd all go for the drink afterwards. And often it was just picking apart the shambolic nature of the gig and what we could have done better. But those experiences are so useful with something as I suppose as where you're trying to sort of, you know, present yourself as a comedian. You've got to be really self-critical, and you've got to fail so many times. Otherwise, you're just never going to get better. So for me, that was like totally in the game plan. It was like, do this gig for a year. And when it was a year done, I was just like, right, I'm done with the gig. And that's when Rawhide Raw came up, which was a proper gig, and that was much more fun to do. Because
I remember that. I mean, Rawhide at the time, it was definitely the premier comedy night in Liverpool. And the night you did, I worked with you on, because like you say, I was a lot newer to the circuit than you. But the night I was on was kind of the new act night, and you ran it and compared it, didn't you?
Yeah. So it was a gong show. So like if the audience aren't enjoying you, they put a card up.
That's right.
And if 2 cards go up, you stay on. But if all 3 cards go up, you get gonged off. And because I met my wife at Rawhide Raw, when I got married, I was doing my speech, and you know, I'm thanking the bridesmaids. I'm making all these lovely. I'm not trying to be funny, because I'm thinking it's my wedding day. I can do that anytime. I'm just trying to be really honest and frank and loving towards my wife. And I saw a card go up from Rawhide Raw, and I was like, it was so out of context. I was like, I don't even understand what that is. So I just dismissed it. Then a second one went up, and then a third one went up, and they cut the mic, and I got gonged off at my own wedding. And it was unbelievable. It was like that scene in Goodfellas when Joe Pesci gets whacked. You know, when he slowly realises that the car gets locked, and then the gun comes up, and like, oh no. It was like that.
But that must have been a great experience as well, because that was a really nice gig, wasn't it? In terms of it was well put together, really well attended. And I mean, did that gig run for very long?
It ran for a couple of years in different venues, and then it moved from, I think it was the Cotton Club, or what was it called, the one on Bold Street, and then it moved to like a different bar. It was in the Royal Court for a bit, and then it ended up in Bar on Harbin Street, and it kind of ran for a bit, and then it sort of petered out a little bit. But it also petered out as I lost a little bit of interest in it, because I was moving on to different things. Then it sort of it was great for me, and it was great for loads of acts that came and did it, and some really famous acts did it at times, you know.
Oh, they did, and it was where you went to kind of progress to the next level. Yeah. And I mean, talking at the next level, the thing which I've been really enjoyed about your career, and you know this, is that you sort of set off, didn't you, down the reasonably well-trodden path for comedians in terms of sort of next came the Edinburgh Fringe. You took a show up there. Tell me about your decision to do that and how that went.
Well, I suppose that was just, I was like a lot of comedians. I had this kind of, I don't want to call it like a career plan, but like a progression, you know, the routes that you go down. The obvious ones are, you know, you do your first gig, then you get better, then you get a good 10 minutes, then you get a good 20 minutes, then you get 25 minutes, then you start to get booked, then you get regular work, then you go to Edinburgh, then you win an award, then you get on the telly, then you sell out arenas. Now, the first like 5 steps anyone can do. The second 5 steps, very few people can.
Oh, it's a handful, isn't it?
Exactly. And there's so much to it. It's not just about, you know, how funny you are, or it's what they see and, you know, how marketable you are. And this is not... I'm very pragmatic about stuff like this, and I knew I probably wasn't quite good enough, but I thought, I'm ready to do Edinburgh, I'm ready to go and do it. So I went up there, and as soon as I got up there, you realise just how many amazing comedians there are, and there's so many, and you just think, I thought it's you feel like Gulliver on Gulliver's Travels, because one minute is it Lilliput where they're all little?
Yeah.
One minute you're in your hometown and you're comparing the Gong Show, and you are head and shoulders better than everyone on the bill because you've done more gigs. So you feel like a giant, and the next minute you're in Edinburgh and I can't remember the name of the place he goes where he's the small one, but you're basically a small fish in a big pond, and there's all these producers coming to watch people, and you just think, I would probably not pick me, to be honest. And, you know, there's so many other people doing, you know, regular stand-up and doing it really well. I suppose that was when I started to think about, I'm so sorry, my phone's
don't worry, mate, no, go on. Don't worry at all.
Turn that off. That's an alarm to tell me son to take a tablet at home, and my wife's at home, so I hope she's set an alarm. No, she will have done.
Listen, we can stop for a minute.
No, it's fine. She'll have done it. Sorry, let me just turn that off so it doesn't repeat. There we
Don't worry, mate, no problem.
Sorry about that.
No problem at all.
So I went to Edinburgh, had a great time, but it's a very intense experience because you're there for 3.5 weeks. You're constantly gigging all afternoon, all evening. I was doing evening shows and like midnight shows, and then you're flying in the day, and then you're back on the stage, and it's great, but the adrenaline and the alcohol and the competition is quite overwhelming. And it was at that point I thought, I need to carve out something a little bit different for myself and not just compete with everyone else. I need to try and find a different way to make this work.
Well, it's interesting because there's a number of parallels there. I think a lot of successful people, particularly in show business, they reach a point where they think, well, I probably can keep going down the well-trodden path, but it's going to take me longer, and probably the chance of getting in the end to it is lower than if I was able to carve out some form of niche.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's parallels in business there as well, because ultimately, having good new ideas is the thing everyone is striving for.
Yeah.
And to try and apply the new ideas to a hugely saturated market is very, very difficult.
Yeah.
So if you're able to kind of come up with a strategy, which you clearly did, to move away from the sort of saturated part and into a more niche market, I could see how that would work. So I was keeping sort of, I'd stopped doing stand-up by this point. I stopped doing stand-up sort of 2012, but I was still enjoying just watching you from afar on Facebook and whatnot, what you're up to. And
I'm glad you said Facebook then, because otherwise that sounds dead sinister. Just in your garden, watching your progress.
I was the one in that Sierra outside yours, the Cosworth. No, I mean, the first thing I remember of the Learner Parent was it a blog?
Yeah, it was a blog. It was just a blog for myself at first. So I suppose on that journey, finding a niche. I mean, obviously that became the niche that hit. But I tried other niches beforehand. Like, because I used to be in a band years ago, so I took a show to Edinburgh called Rock and Dole. That was all about trying to be a rock star and failing. And then I got on Six Music. So then I thought, right, music and comedy. Not musical comedy, but comedy about music. That's my niche. So I tried to write another show, and it was quite difficult to do, and I started blogging about that. But it was when when my wife was pregnant, I started a blog called The Learner Parent, and it was just all about trying to be a parent and often failing, which everyone does, but doing it in a way that was, I suppose, initially just so I didn't forget stuff. But it was only when someone said, well, why don't you just put it online? And I thought, well, that's the best way to see if something's funny, by just sticking it online and seeing if it connects with people. And I suppose I was quite disciplined with that from the beginning, because I thought, this is really funny. This experience is really funny to me. I think it could be funny to other people. It's not unique, which is a good thing for some comedy because that means people can connect with it, but I can put my own unique take on it. But I was really disciplined from the beginning, from the very first blog I did with that, because of all the other experiences. I thought this could be something kind of, really funny if I'm disciplined about the gags within it, the word counts, just shaving off any fat off the bone. And also for online, and this was something I sort of learned over the first sort of 5 or 6 blogs, that first paragraph's got to be funny. It's got to hook people in, because otherwise you can't start slowly because people just scroll on. So you've got to grab. So that means sometimes you've got to say something a bit outlandish at the beginning. But it did just spiral from just literally a few notes in my phone in the hospital before the kids were born.
And how did that change? Because obviously when you were doing stand-up, you're writing, but you're writing it with the performance very much at the forefront of your mind. How am I going to say this? How are the audience going to respond to it? What works and what doesn't? How was the process of creating the blog in the first instance? Did you ever have an idea that this was going to form part of a tour at a later stage?
Not at all. Not at all. I thought it could become something, but something of its own, just more, but not like in terms of career or financial. I just thought, this is fun. Because at the time, when my kids were born, I was doing Jongleurs comedy clubs every weekend.
That's right, I remember.
And Jongleurs, at that point, was just a horrible place to do comedy. Stag and hen groups, really badly run gigs in rooms that didn't fit. It was like going back to the Dragon Bar, but for more money.
Right, I see.
But it was some of the gigs were unplayable because the mics weren't good, but it was paying the bills. But creatively, I felt so unhappy. And I thought, doing comedy, making people laugh, talking about what I want to talk about has always been my dream. And here I am, just crowd controlling as the compere in this horrible nightclub in the middle of Birmingham or wherever it was. Nothing against Birmingham. I do like Birmingham, but for any Brummies listening, please buy tickets for the next show. But so what I used to do is I used to bring an act on, and then at the back of the gig, while the act was on, doing their generic 20 minutes of, hi, have you ever noticed about airline food comedy? I'd have my phone out and I'd be writing the next blog. So because I like being creative and I like the use of language, and a lot of this stuff I felt like Jongleurs didn't allow you to do because you just would have got eaten alive by the audience talking about your feelings. You know what I mean?
And I want to ask you about that later, actually, because I'm really interested to know about the difference between a comedy audience who comes for a night out and a comedy audience who comes to see Sam Avery, because they seem to me to be a very different kind of demographic, so to speak.
World of difference.
But I just want to touch on the book, because I listened to you on Confessions of a Learner Parent, your book. So at what stage of writing the blog did you think there's a book in this?
I suppose it was quite early on when the audience started to develop, because it did happen quite quickly. Once I got into a disciplined habit of releasing a blog at a certain time, there was like an audience grew quite quickly. I think the Lad Bible shared something of mine, and I got like 10,000 new followers overnight. I was like, whoa. And then I had this one post that was a list, and I basically picked all my best posts from the year before and compiled them into a list, and it was 20 things I learned as a parent last year. And as soon as I posted it, I checked it about a minute later, and I had something like 800 likes, and I was like, whoa, this is ridiculous. And that ended up going super viral, like all over the way, like 120,000 likes is that so far. So overnight, I hate to talk in figures like this because that's not what it's all about.
No, it's so interesting.
It does help, if you're trying to push something. So overnight, I ended up with about an extra 65,000 followers, like over a weekend or something stupid. It was ridiculous. And from that point, I was like, there's an audience here. I've got an audience. Like overnight, I've got an audience. Of course, all the work that had gone into that point certainly wasn't overnight, but this thing had just developed very quickly. So at that point, I thought I'd love to write a book. I'd love to put all this into something, and that's where it's quite easy to get people interested in you when you've got this viral post and loads of followers.
It's amazing because I listened to Confessions of a Learner Parent. It made such a difference to me, you reading it. It really did, because I felt you feeling every word of it. And first and foremost, it's laugh out loud funny within about 2 minutes.
Thanks.
And I pretty much didn't stop, and I spent half of it on a treadmill, so I looked absolutely ridiculous. But also, as well as that being hilarious, which I thought it would be. I found it to be so honest and it's so moving, to be honest with you.
Thanks.
In terms of the ups and downs of creating and bringing up a child.
Yeah.
When you were writing, were you kind of feeling that in terms of this being, this is an honest piece of work.
Yeah.
It's not comedy for comedy's sake. There are real kind of emotions, the real experiences. These. Yeah,
definitely. Thanks for saying that. I'm glad that you felt that, because that was a real important part of it, because I didn't want to just be, and this is not what I do anyway, but I didn't want to just be the guy, he says it like it is. He just says what he really feels, which often translates into he just moans about everything, which is not what I do at all.
Not at all.
What I do is I talk about the challenges in a very matter-of-fact way, and how that I don't quite pass all the challenges, because that's comedy. Comedy is when life gives you A when you were expecting B, and how do you deal with that? How do you make that transition? And the real life moments, like the kind of heartfelt moments. It's funny what you talk about listening to the audiobook, because when I was recording the audiobook, obviously you've got the manuscript of the book in front of you and you're reading through it, and those bits that I got to, especially the heartfelt bits, was like, oh my God, not only do I not remember that happening, I don't remember writing it. And now I'm reading it, and I was getting choked up reading it, because there's certain moments where, like, the kids were separated at the start because one had an operation and they're both fine now, but it was like the big my wife being reunited with her son, and the son, it's just this like beautiful touching moment. And I was reading it, and I had to sort of do a couple of takes, because I was starting to get a little bit,
Well, do you know what I mean? I felt a bit like that, because I don't think there's many parents who won't listen or read the book and won't take something from it, because I think, bloody hell, that happened to us as well, or that sort of thing. And I felt it was a really enjoyable opportunity just to reflect on the sheer messiness of being a parent.
Yeah, it is, and it is just a mess, and that's why it's the perfect subject matter for comedy, because it is every day you're in a new situation, especially the first couple of years, and you don't know what you're doing, and the kids looking at you look like that drink's not really going down as well as,
well, do you know what,
that drink's going down like parenthood went down for me.
I don't think I've ever drank, but it's really nice. But I'm gonna get what's in it? Is it one drop of water in this? Can I have 2 drops in the next one?
Drops.
Let's push the boat out a bit. I think I'll be fine then. Sorry, mate, go on.
Yeah, so I mean, it's the perfect, I'd written about music. You can be funny about music, but it's funnier when you're the butt of the joke and you're failing, not on a daily basis, on an hourly basis. You're being tested by someone who you're in charge of. They don't know what to do, and you haven't got a clue either. So there's 4 people in our house. 50% of them are screaming, and 100% of them are clueless. I mean, that's like a sitcom waiting to be written, isn't it?
But you know what? They always say with parenthood, there's no rule book. But I think Confessions of a Learner Parent was the closest I found to a rule book, which tells you both how to get it wrong and then eventually how to get it right.
Yeah.
So I totally loved it. I mean, we're going to put links to the book, obviously via your website on our socials. Thanks. But what we're going to do, guys, is we're going to have a very short break, but we're back with Sam the other side of half time, and we've got so much to get through. We've got theatre tours, we've got Sam moving into the comedy and the training world, we've got the striking of COVID, and we've got Mr. Avery's resurgence from that pandemic. So if you don't tune back in, what on earth is wrong with you?
It's half time, guys. I want to thank everybody at the Spiring Group for the support with Success Won't Come Calling. That's the businesses for assisting with the costs of recording the podcast, and that's our 150 team members in the UK, in Australia, and in the USA who've supported me with likes, with shares, with follows, with kind words, and with moral support. You're all fantastic, guys. Thank you so much. I hope you're going to stay part of supporting this podcast. Thank you again. And now it's time to go back to my chat with Sam Avery.
Lovely. We're back with Sam. And we finished off, didn't we, talking about the fantastic book, Confessions of a Learner Parent. When was the point when you decided that the Learner Parent was going to form your show and that you were going to take it out on the road?
I think it was towards the start of 2018, I think. Yeah, I think it was January 2018. It was like New Year, new me and all that sort of stuff. I was like, right, what do I want to do this year? And the book had come out the year before, and I think the book had done well, and people a lot of people saying, oh, you're going to write another book. And I had this idea initially, I'll just be a writer. I don't want to do these horrible stag and hen clubs anymore. I'll just be a writer. I'll sit at home and I'll write funny things. And then you realise, well, actually, I've got this huge audience that are waiting for me to do something and want to hear what I'm going to do next, which is unbelievable. I'm like, what a luxurious place to be in. And then I thought, I'd never, ever publicised any of my gigs on my Facebook page or Instagram or anything like that because they were all these rough and ready gigs. And I thought, I don't want these audiences who've seen me written this, well-written piece about something to come and see me just calling everyone a knobhead, basically, which is what it was. So I thought, I've probably not tapped into this, really. So I just sent out a couple of emails to some promoters and went, here's all my stats. I want to do a tour. What do you reckon? And within about half an hour, one of them had got back to me and then he phoned me up and he was like, let's do this. And he sent me the contract that day. He was like, let's do it. So I was dead dubious. I was like, this sounds too good to be true. So I got some people to check over it and he went, he's giving you an amazing deal there. Do it. So he set up this tour and just tickets just flew off the shelves. And I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe how much people wanted to come and see the person who they've been reading, they've just been reading my stuff, come and see me do what I've done for years, really, what I do best, which is stand-up, which was just, I was so thrilled.
I bet you were. I mean, you talk there about the comparison between just the crowd control that you were doing on the circuit to an audience who'd paid to see you and were coming along to watch something they already understood. Because, of course, that's the other thing about stand-up. The next fella out the curtain or girl out the curtain, you don't know anything about them.
No.
And this obviously is very different. So how would you compare the audience in a Jongleurs to an audience at your first tour?
Like worlds apart. I mean, to the point where it took quite a lot of adjusting to kind of change the way I was approaching the gigs at first, because I was going out all guns blazing like I was, in Glasgow on a Saturday night and nobody knew who I was. Like, hey! And they were like, all right, mate. A lot of us aren't even drinking because we've got little kids at home. Yeah. We're in a couple or there's just groups of women. I mean, it's like something like 90% of the followers have got a women. So it's all, when you've got a room full of women, the sound of the laugh even sounds different. There's less baritone bass to it.
Yeah.
So you end up with a different sound coming back at you, which again takes a little bit of getting used to. Everyone's in a theatre, so everyone's expecting a show. So I thought I'd just go out and chat to them for 20 minutes and then get started. And I was chatting to them, and they did not want to be talked to at the start because I was going in like a club comic. Yeah. And so it just took a little bit of getting used to. But once you get used to it, I mean, it's the best feeling because you like you say, they know your backstory, they know what what your thing is, and they're there to see you, and they've committed to that, and that's a great feeling. And I still got to scratch the itch of winning over people to some tiny degree because a lot of the women brought their husbands who didn't have a clue who I was and were angry that I'd been making their wife laugh really hard for the last 2 years.
And when you saw the fella just start to giggle, you're like, yes.
I could see. I used to have the lights quite bright on the audience because, again, you can choose how you have the room set up. And I'm like, okay, I want to see them, I want to see faces. And I could feel these folded arms open up. And then a lot of them would come up to me at the end and they went, I'm only here because you've given my wife more pleasure in the last 3 years than I ever have. And then they'd say, I really enjoyed that. I'm going to start, following your stuff. And that's a nice feeling as well.
Well, it totally is. I mean, I remember when I saw you, you were at the Leicester Square Theatre, weren't you, on that tour?
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I've still got that poster somewhere in the house just because whether I play there again or not, that was a moment where you have these little moments where you just go, bloody hell! Like this is a bit mad, isn't it?
I bet it must have been. I mean, I remember you did the shot of the sort of empty theatre behind you when
that was during the show.
Yeah, I thought to myself, tell you what, even when he was stood on a pallet in the Dragon Bar, I knew he'd get there.
Brought my own pallet to the West End. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, because rooms like that, they're just beautiful rooms as well. So the gig is so much fun. Once you've got to get over yourself, you've got to get over that, oh my God, that imposter syndrome that, I think everyone suffers from at some point where you're just thinking, whoa. And also, the camaraderie's not there. I don't have a support act. I'm on my own. I'm just waiting for someone to say it's time to go, Sam. And I'm like, all right. So just jump up and get yourself ready for the gig. Crazy, but once you get into the groove, it's just the best thing.
And so that was the Learn a Parent tour.
Yeah.
And then you started the Toddlergeddon tour. That was your second tour, wasn't it?
That was my second tour. Yeah, started at the start of 2020. So yeah, you can see.
And then did you sort of see the pandemic coming down the track? Did you sort of keep your eye on the news and you were thinking, this isn't going so well?
Yeah.
Did it ever sort of occur to you that you're going to have to pull the ladder up on Toddlergeddon kind of halfway through?
It did, but I was more worried about the fact that we were all going to die, because that's what I think everyone thought. At a certain point, like sort of mid-March, and I remember just thinking, this is it, we're all going to be dead in like a month. Which
So
is
finishing the tour halfway through, you'd have to do that anyway if you died, wouldn't you?
Exactly, yeah, exactly. So there was an intro track for Toddlergeddon, because the Toddlergeddon was all about, I just thought it was a funny word. And I had this idea that the tour poster would be me in my dressing gown and me pyjamas, holding the Waltz pistol with toys flying around me, but I'm trying to cope. I'm trying to be like this action hero in the middle of Toddlergeddon. It's a ridiculous idea. And I thought we could have like the old 50s horror movie font for Toddlergeddon. So what I did was, for the start of the show, I had an intro track, which was all like basically chaos, Armageddon, people screaming, this really scary soundtrack and a voiceover of like basically the world's going to end. And about 2 weeks before we ended up pulling the plug because of COVID, I started to think, this intro track's making people feel very uncomfortable because the world might be ending. And I'm sort of, playing this, we're all going to die soundtrack. So I stopped using that for the last couple of shows, and then obviously it got pulled.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that period of uncertainty where it was like, well, not only do we not know what's going to happen business-wise or work-wise or anything-wise, but we don't know what's going to happen health-wise. We don't know what this actually is we're facing. When it was clear to you that you weren't going to be back in a theatre anytime soon, what did that feel like?
I suppose it was quite a kick in the teeth initially. But once I got over that, it was very much, I just took that as a opportunity to just reset and just relax. And I didn't realise how much I'd been working until I stopped. And then I realised I'd just been killing myself for like the last probably 12 years, really. I think a couple of years at the start of stand-up, I took it easy and didn't really do many gigs. And when I realised I need to put the work in, I just started and never stopped. And driving everywhere, trains, I know there's worse things to do. I'm not down on mine, but it still takes its toll, and the adrenaline rush, and then the crash, and then being away from the kids as well, and missing my wife, and being able to just stop. And I mean, luckily being in a financially secure enough to not be worrying about that, which was a total gift, because I know not everyone's in that lucky position, but to just think, okay, well, there's nothing I can do. I can't change the world, so let's just make my little part of the world as nice as possible, spend some time with my kids, relax, get healthy, start doing loads of exercise and meditating and drinking less and just feeling good, really. And I really enjoyed that for about 4 months, and then it started to get dead boring.
I was going to say, you drank less in lockdown. What's wrong with you?
I did, but now I'm on your podcast and I seem to have fallen off the wagon spectacularly.
But you know what? We talk about success on this podcast, Sam, and what you've just described in terms of a crisis that is out of your control hit us. There's nothing you can do about it. No. You're right that to be in a fortunate position where you can pay the bills is great, and complete sympathy for those who weren't in that position. But I think the ability to sort of disconnect from things that are out of your control and focus on enjoying the things which are, that seems to me it's consistent with the ability to reset, that you're not beating yourself up about things which are going on outside of your particular circle. Is that something you feel?
It definitely, and it's not something I do naturally, to be honest, all the time, but it's something I'm very conscious of, and I've always tried to do, whether it's with work or personal stuff. It's like just try to only focus your energies on what you can control, because the things you can control, you can really make a difference with. But even if it is just for yourself, but the things out you can control, which is difficult with social media, because every time you're on social media, you see, oh, he's doing well, or she's doing well. Oh, look at them. Well, they don't deserve the breaks they're getting. And then you're going, this voice in my head needs to do one, because what is this? Like, and also, you don't know how much work they're putting in. So why are you judging people? I'm sure people have looked at me in the same way. So it is a case of just, looking at what you can control and just doing that.
It is. And it's interesting you mentioned social media, because I'm just thinking back to lockdown. And I mean, we were making a pig's ear of homeschooling. and you'd switch on Facebook and you'd have families who are learning Japanese and flossing in the lounge every night and that sort of thing. And you think, we're clearly failures.
Yeah.
But you've got to just have you rationalise it and say, you can only do what you can do.
You can only do what you can do. And also, social media is the best moment of their day. And you compare that with the worst of yours. And that's not fair. That's not fair on yourself. It's not fair on them either.
Yeah, no, it's true.
So, and that's where, a lot of the stuff that I've put online for the learner parent has been very much about, people say, oh, you're very real, you're very honest. And I'm like, I'm not, I just show you the funny bits, because I have some lovely days with me kids, but nobody wants to hear about that because that's not funny. I need those days. Those days are magical and I will never forget those days, but they don't make a good comedy show. We went to the beach and my son looked into my eyes and he told me that he loved me, and I've never felt at one with the universe. Thank you very much. We'll be back after the interval.
Yeah, the vomit days are much better, aren't they?
Much better for fun, But that's the thing about humour. Humour's got this great ability to be able to, reset the way we look at things and the way we kind of, deal with challenges. And I think it's certainly helped me. And when people contact me saying, oh, you really helped me get through a bad day, and I'm like, no, you've helped me, because you've given me someone to direct this kind of negative energy turn it into something positive and make someone laugh. And I feel great. I feel much better.
Well, it's a lovely link into what else you've been doing away from the sort of showbiz world in terms of the touring, the writing and the blogging, because what's really impressed me is the work that you've been doing with businesses in terms of bringing training to them, in terms of employee support and employee engagement through using humour and comedy as a tool to improve their relationships with one another.
Yeah.
And I mean, I would extend it further than that. I think people who like working together and like working for a business will treat their clients better, 100%.
Yeah.
Well, just talk to me about how that works. I mean, I've read everything on that, and we're going to signpost everyone to your website.
Yeah.
Talk to me about how the training works that you do with businesses.
So I've been doing this for probably about 15 years now, but it's really the last sort of 3 or 4 years it's become a bit more of a popular thing and something I'm doing more regularly and to a higher level, I'd imagine, as I'm doing it more. But it's all about humour and laughter. And I don't like to use the word comedy because that makes people think they've got to stand up and tell jokes. But I basically go into workplaces, or we do a lot of stuff virtually over COVID. And it's all about creating happier, healthier people, and it's using humour. And there's different ways we can do that. We can do that by looking at ways you can use humour on a daily basis, or how you can build resilience by learning to laugh, or use coping strategies, looking at things from a different perspective. I think humour's got this amazing power to be able to look at a challenge and think, yeah, but if I just take 2 steps that way or 2 steps the other way, that's not a challenge anymore. That's a story. That's an anecdote. Or that's something that we can connect over. Doesn't mean it's not still a challenge, but you can then approach it with a fresh perspective. So that can be really empowering for people.
Totally. And I mean, as well as it being an anecdote, it's also a way of building resilience. I think, because I mean, obviously we run a big group, we employ lots of people, and the issue of mental health, I mean, has there ever been a time where this is more important, that businesses look at the way they're supporting their staff and say, let's not neglect the fact that whilst there's lots to feel positive about at the moment, there are lots of people who've maybe been on a furlough for a long time, or who've been working reduced hours, or in an environment which has been more stressful.
Yeah.
And when I've sort of thought about this, I've thought, well, building that resilience and that positivity in the workforce is going to lead to, I think, a reduction in stress. That seems a useful sort of way of thinking how it would manifest itself.
Definitely, yeah. Reduction in stress, better team spirit, more efficiency. People are much more enjoying the role, enjoying the job, enjoying the company of their colleagues, whether that's virtually or in real life. But the big thing I always talk about is you can't affect what the world throws at you, but you can affect your response to it. Yeah. And humour's a great choice to make, whether it's conscious or subconscious, to not let things knock you over. And that's why you go to a funeral, and you wouldn't expect a funeral to be a place where loads of people are laughing. But some funerals, it's almost like this dark fog of negativity. Everyone's sitting in it and they go, hang on, let's get rid of this. Let's have a laugh. Let's joke about the person. Let's kind of enjoy the memory. And And it doesn't mean you're being disrespectful. It's just a way of coping. And I think as humans, like humour and laughter especially, laughter is just our way of looking at the world and thinking, that wasn't supposed to happen like that. So what's our response? Is it to get angry? That's not positive, is it? Is it to get annoyed? Is it to get stressed? Or can we just laugh about it? And sometimes people think when you're laughing about something, you're not taking it seriously. But I say, when you're laughing about something, it means it's really serious and you're taking it very seriously. But that's just your way of reacting to it and coping with it and almost applying this filter to be able to digest that difficult situation.
Well, it is. And it's also a way of moving it forward, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because if you're in a tricky spot, either in a relationship, in work, in business, in anything, you've got to find a way of taking those first steps and to bring some humour to the table to say, do you know what? Yeah. This isn't good, is it? But it's not always going to be like this. So what are we going to do about it?
Yeah.
That's a way of just breaking that sort of chain of negativity.
Definitely.
And I mean, it's something we talk about a lot in our business about. We are where we are. We've got to move it forward.
Yeah.
Where do we go from here?
Always, yeah.
And it seems to me that humour and positivity is a very natural first step towards a progressive plan.
Definitely. And it's not just humour and positivity for the sake of it either. It's with a progression in mind. And also what we try and do in the sessions that I run is give people like a toolkit that they can go away and use.
Yeah.
That's realistic as well, because it's not just me going into businesses saying, let's all have a laugh. You're getting made redundant. Just smile and the world will smile with you, because that's not realistic, is it? And also, too much positivity is dead annoying as well.
Yeah,
like, we've all been in situations where it's too early and they're like, morning. You're like, shut up. I want to put a gun in your face. Yeah. So I'm not just going around like some big la-di-da. Let's just all have a laugh.
Like a sort of corporate Paul chuckle.
Which, if you've not heard their second album, it's a great listen. But yeah, so it's definitely being realistic with what the situation is, and also being professional as well, because I do this big thing at the start of every session. I talk about the caveat, which is humour's not always appropriate,
Yeah.
But perversely, that is when things are more funny, when things aren't supposed to be funny.
Yeah.
But that's when you got to rein it in sometimes. We all have. But it's very much, again, being pragmatic about what's realistic and what people can do. But people get great benefits from the short term, from the session. But also, they go away and we try to do stuff 6 months later and see if they've implemented some of the ideas that we've had, and we get great feedback.
Well, I bet. And what I would say to businesses is, some businesses are going to find a way of making the cost base more efficient moving forward in terms of coming out of office space, reducing office space. I would say to anyone who's leading a business, don't think of that as a cost saving. Think of it as a reallocation of your spend, and think seriously about reinvesting a good proportion of it in your team's welfare.
Yeah.
I think if there's ever been a time where people need to be reaching out to you and basically saying, look, this is the situation, we're coming back to our own new normal. These are the outcomes I want to achieve for the team in terms of not just their well-being, but their productivity.
Yeah.
And you could fit things around that, couldn't you?
Oh, definitely. And I think if there's any cost you're saving on rent, give it all to me. You won't regret it. But there's all different scenarios that works in as well. And sometimes it is remote working, like with the virtual sessions, or, a lot of the sessions I've done have been with kind of like high level executives, and you get this kind of different dynamic from when I've been out onto like the factory floor and there's 50 fellas and it's the end of their night shift and they're looking at me like, you're the thing that's in the way of me and finishing work. And do you know what? Because I'm not doing a gig in my head. I'm not doing a gig. I'm doing a talk.
Yeah.
So if I'm funny, it's a bonus. Of course, I've done stand-up for nearly 20 years, so it's dead funny. And I get them laughing and I can feel them going, this is boss. And that's a nice feeling. But also to see them kind of take on board the key learning points that are really important to make.
Because it's those learning points, it's the what next.
Yeah,
it's
course.
Not about the day out, it's about the what next.
Of course.
And you mentioned about remote learning there. I mean, have any doors open to you in terms of doing this internationally? Because whilst COVID's presented its challenges, I think we've all had to get a lot more comfortable, haven't we, with sort of building rapport through using technology. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, we've done a few bits and bobs with people from the Netherlands, Iceland, and a lot of these workforces have got completely multinational employees. They all speak English as a second language, as do I, being from Liverpool. So I have to, really make sure I'm enunciating without ruining the rhythm of what I'm trying to get across. But they work really well because that can be a good starting point for like a little warm-up exercise where you're talking about national differences and cultural words that we use and all those things that kind of make us different and unique but then laughter brings us all together, so you can celebrate the differences while connecting everyone together. And it's joyful, it's beautiful, and people feel kind of really connected at the end of it.
And what's coming across to me is that you're not finding the tech as a barrier to building that rapport and that positivity. And I think that's something we've all got used to, isn't it?
Yeah, I've got my preferred sites that I use for the video calls.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to mention who I prefer and who I don't, but I think I'm just more comfortable in some of them. And the ones where you can put the little breakout rooms on, that's great, because then you kind of split people off and then bring everyone back. And the first couple were challenging, but after a while you're just like, this feels normal. And I've started doing some real life workshops again, which was great, but I've got to wear one of those welder's masks,
Right.
So I feel like Mr. T when he's trying to break out of a garage or something. and then I went back to doing a virtual workshop, and I thought that would be a bit of a downer. But I think I preferred it because I could keep my slippers on.
So, I mean, when you said then you had your preferred sites, I thought it was going in a completely different direction. So I'm glad you brought it back to...
Like I say, my wife doesn't listen to anything I do, so it's fine.
So where are we now? We're May 2021. We're looking really positive in terms of coming out of this pretty challenging year we ball in. What's next for Sam Avery? You best finish off the tour first, hadn't you?
I've got to finish off Toddlergeddon, even though my kids are like 17 now. No, this is 6, and I've got to finish that tour. So I've got about 6 dates left. I'm going to finish off at the end of 2020, and I think there's 1 date in 2021. And to be honest, listen, if you've got tickets for the shows, I'm gonna do a great performance. But I'm so checked out with that show because it's about a year since I've done one. I've got to relearn the show. None of it's really relevant to me anymore because my kids are a lot older.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm sure I'll enjoy it once I get back in the swing of it. But I'm always looking forward, and it's the next show that I've started writing already, which is for 2021, which is going to be called Role Model. So
is that something you wrote during lockdown?
I've not started writing it yet.
I'm
just writing it at the moment, and a lot of people have said, "Oh, you're going to talk about lockdown?" I'm like, "No, I think we've done that." Like, I was tempted to call the show "We Don't Need to Talk About Lockdown" because I think everyone's talked about it enough, and there's only so much you can talk about Zoom and
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? I have wondered from time to time whether comedy for the first 6 months is you're going to be able to get away from it, but I think we need to kind of reset, don't we?
Yeah. So this show's all about being a role model. Am I a role model? What is a role model? Who were my role models when I was a kid? I'm always trying to be a role model for my 2 lads, but sometimes I fail. Sometimes I fail because I'm doing the wrong thing. Sometimes I fail because I don't know what a role model is. So the whole show's going to be examining what that is. Of course, with comedy shows, you've got to come up with a title and a blurb 14 months before you do the first show. So you've got to make it sound exciting without really knowing what the show's going to be about. So I'm talking about it's going to be this, it's going to be that. It might just be nothing like that. But it will. That's the key theme, that it's vague enough, but also I think there's enough that you can explore. And it's something that I'm really interested in about, am I a role model? Or do I need to do better? And who were mine and were they good role models or not?
Oh, well, listen, we're going to put all of the dates for the finished off tour for Toddlergeddon on a link to it on the socials.
Great, thanks.
We'd love to put for the new tour on the socials as and when it comes out. But it's been so great having a drink with you, mate. It's been catching up. I can't believe it's 10 years.
It's brilliant, isn't it? I know. What are you doing in 2030? Put me down.
Well, if I have too many more of them, I'm not sure I'll be going on that long, that's for sure. But listen, congratulations, mate. I mean, we're all about the success on this podcast. And we're going to be talking to all walks of life. But I think some of the things you've talked about today, Sam, in terms of the way you've dealt with challenge, in terms of you diversifying your options, in terms of you looking at your skills and thinking where is your market share and how can you get it. There's lots there that I'm going to be asking other guests about in terms of whether they've thought through success in this way, they've thought through planning in this way. I'm not going to ask them if they've ever done any gigs in the Dragon Bar, because they probably haven't.
You never know. We had a lot of acts there.
Oh, it's been great to see you, mate. I'll see you again soon.
Thanks very much. Good to see you.
Thanks for coming on, man.
Cheers.
enjoy most about your interview with Sam Avery?
I thought he was, first of all, I thought he was very funny. Definitely, he's got that combination of very sharp comedy skills and just real sincerity. I thought everything he talked about in the writing process, about how he juggled the emotions of building a family, which obviously is key to his book, with the fact that he wanted people to laugh at it, that's how I felt when I read his book or when I listened to it on audio book. So I thought he put that across very well. He really impressed me with the decision he took not to just keep going down the tried and tested comedy circuit route and to diversify his skills. And I'm really pleased that he's had the success he's had, because he really has earned it and he's worth it.
Yeah. So be honest with us. Did you learn any tips for your parenting from his book?
Wow, yes, absolutely. I mean, do you know what? That's the thing with being a parent. It's there's no rule book, and certainly some of the comments Sam made in his book gave me food for thought. But when I listened to his book, I was speaking to my missus about it. I remember some of those things happening to us. So again, it's back to the fact that Sam's been able to write about what he's experiencing, but also make it genuinely funny, make it laugh out loud funny. So yeah, I took quite a lot away from that.
Yeah. So what was your favourite part about interviewing Sam Avery?
Well, I was so interested in what Sam's plans for the future were, and that he's thinking so positively about his options now that we get to the end of this, really tough year for everyone, but for the entertainment industry, it's been pretty catastrophic. And his positivity, I found really inspiring. But also, he's an entrepreneur, Sam. The fact that he's a comedian and a writer, I think, is just detail. Definitely what he showed to me was that in terms of the way he looks at the future, the way he's making the best of the substantial skills he's got. And also, he was clear that he was able to disengage from any negativity and to only concentrate on the things he controls. And that, to me, that refusal to beat yourself up when things don't go well, I think that underpins success.
Yeah, me too. Do you think we should get him back onto the podcast once his new corporate venture goes wild?
I would love to have Sam back on the podcast, but he's not making me drink any more of that bourbon.
It didn't smell the best, I'm not going to lie.
Oh, well, thanks, Jason. Thanks to Sam. He did it a couple of weeks ago, but he was an absolute star. I really enjoyed it. So that was episode 1 of Success Won't Come Calling. Hope you've enjoyed it, guys, and you've got value from it. See you back here soon.